Well, John Browning, it certainly is good to be back with you on your podcast. How are you today?
I'm as happy as a dog in a butcher shop.
I love it. That's a pretty happy dog there. That's good. That's a good phrase. I need a good phrase. Like, I got a friend who every time I ask him a question and the answer is yes, his answer back to me is, does a one-legged duck swim in a circle? Yeah, I guess it does. So all those little trite phrases, little phrases like, well, yeah, I guess it is. So anyway, a dog in a butcher shop. Let me ask you, we talked a couple of episodes ago about pensions and how many times we don't have them now, and how to create your own personal paycheck protection plan. You can do that. Reach out to John at Guardian Rock Wealth. And then we talked again in another episode about Social Security and all the different ways to do that, and the confusion around that. And we need to plan. Then we talked, I think, last session or the session before, about your dad and how he worked for a few years and he got an early buyout and he hasn't worked since. And I think you made a comment to me that his company has paid him more since after he got that buyout. After he stopped working for them, they have given him more paychecks than when he was employed by them. That's crazy. So, but that's all because of pensions and buyouts and Social Security, but they're not the same as they used to be, right? Things have changed in our culture with just the way finances work and the way people work. I mean, leave it to Beaver. I don't think Mrs. Cleaver ever had a job outside the house, but now we've got a whole workforce of working women, right? That has to play into how we as families plan for retirement, doesn't it?
Well, that's right. It's actually a really good point. And women have come so far, right, since Mrs. Cleaver, and their rights have been, that was a great show and all that kind of stuff, but their rights, and they still on the averages are not getting equal pay for equal work, and that's something that we need to continue to fight for, and there are great causes that do that. But another place that they get a kind of a bad rap, and people don't plan for it, maybe because they just don't realize it, is that when you are a working couple and your wife has been working and I've been working, and it comes time for Social Security, you're both drawing Social Security, right? But then when the husband passes away, the wife only gets half of that, and it creates a little bit of friction and a misunderstanding of how Social Security works. And it worked back when Social Security was originally invented because women, frankly, didn't work outside the home. They did plenty of work inside the home, but they didn't do the double duty that they're pulling often now.
That's right.
And it's still underneath that kind of that outdated idea. So Social Security can maybe throw a curveball, a little bit of a surprise.
Well, it really can, especially let's talk about an elderly couple. Let's say they're 78, husband and wife still living on Social Security primarily. Maybe they have a pension, but they both are drawing Social Security checks. And let's just say they're making $5,000 a month. I don't know, just throwing numbers out, right?
Yep.
Well, if when he dies, because he's statistically going to die before her, right? He dies, but he's got the bigger pension or the bigger Social Security amount.
Yep.
It's like she loses hers because hers was less than his, and she gets half of his. So her income goes down significantly. And if they haven't planned for that, that is a major, major stressful event that could cause, all kinds of ramifications, not just for her, but for her extended family and things, right? And people just don't think about this.
Right. That's exactly right. And it's just, again, it's set up based on 1950s way the world was, and nobody has really talked about this.
Yeah. So, and when did Social Security start? Was it back in the 50s or 30s, or when did it,
You stumped me on that.
Oh, stumped the jump.
I'm not sure when Social Security actually began. Yeah, I should know that, right?
Yeah. It was back, I want to say, with the FDR area, but I don't know. But it was when it was established. It was established during the time when really most women didn't work outside the home. Most. Some did, but most didn't.
Right.
And as you said, those rules haven't changed. Those Social Security rules haven't changed. Our culture has changed dramatically, but the rules for Social Security haven't changed much. And
Right.
that's why you need somebody like John Browning to help you understand and navigate the rules around Social Security, because whether you think it's right or not really doesn't matter until the rules change, right?
Right. 1935, by the way.
1935.
Yeah.
Was established in 1935. So in 1935, it'd be fascinating to do the research of how many women worked outside the home in 1935.
Not many, because that was before World War II. And that's when some women started working outside the home because they had to, right?
Yeah.
Because the men were away at war. So yeah, not many. 1930s.
Yeah. And so versus today, a lot of women working outside the home. Praise God for that.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules for Social Security, they're still functioning under 1935 rules. That's crazy. And it makes a big difference. And
so basically what you're saying here is that while we've come a long way with women's rights, we still have a ways to go.
yes. Oh, big time. Big time. Because if you don't plan well right now, okay, you're under the rules of an old regime, right? The rules haven't changed. You need to be planning for how are you going to navigate around those rules? How are you going to find the loopholes per se, right? That's how the rich stay rich. They know the loopholes in the tax code. They're not illegal at all. They're totally legal. They just know them. Same thing here. If you're banking on that Social Security check that you're getting right now between you and your husband for the rest of your life, that's not a safe bet. Odds are he's going to die first and you're going to lose a chunk of change every month unless you've planned well. I just think it's a topic that nobody talks about. I never hear this on the evening news.
No. Mm-hmm.
I never hear this on the internet. Nobody talks about this, but it is by far one of the biggest things people plan for, because we're all paying into Social Security, right? We all expect it to be there when we retire, and we all expect it to last the rest of our life. But what happens to your wife when you've lost your life? Ooh, how about that? But it really is it's a big financial deal that you've got to plan for. And that's where you come in, John, is you understand the stuff around Social Security, around pensions, around investments, how to title those investments. We talked about that a few times ago, how to create a personal pension or a personal paycheck protection plan. We talked about that a few times ago. I mean, there's so many variables that it does cause us to stick our head in the sand and go, I don't even want to talk about it. And John Browning comes along and he pops your head right out of the sand and says, no, let's just talk about this. I got this. Yeah. You're like a Mac. Macs are so easy to use. You make financial planning easy because you know the questions to ask, and you do this, as I call it, on the backstroke. It's just like, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. You know the right questions to ask. But first, you've got to build a relationship with your clients, right? That's the first step in your whole process.
I have to listen to them. I have to understand what it is that they really want. And a lot of times, so many times, we've never taken the step to ask ourselves what we really want, or we've only asked ourselves and not in front of an independent third party that is willing to ask the why question and get you to think just a little bit deeper. And then just a little bit deeper still until you really find out what's really not just how you want to build your life, but how you're going to be most fulfilled in later life.
Yeah. And really that's it. And that's the thing that I appreciate about you is you talk about financial planning from in building a life, not just a portfolio, right? But it's building the life today that you want to live today, and anticipating the life you want to live in retirement. How do you do both of those and send kids to college and buy the boat or the Harley and do all these other things, right? There are so many things in there that if you've got a John Browning in your corner, he can help you navigate and know where to be investing, where to pull money from which account at what time. What do you need to do to plan for retirement with increasing healthcare costs, possibly increasing taxes, all kinds of things that are going on that most of us just don't even think about. We just think we're going to retire one day, get the gold watch, and walk to our mailbox and there's going to be a check there.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen quite that easily.
It really doesn't. And if you wait until you get the gold watch, it's going to tarnish by the time you get all the paperwork done, I think.
Right. And you know what? They don't even give you that gold watch anymore.
What?
That's gone too. Yeah.
Oh, no.
I don't think they give those anymore either.
What is the world coming to? Sorry. But it's just a matter of it's planning, it's thinking, it's doing what, and you know, I've got a big ministry to men. I like to challenge men. And I think, John, one of the best ways men can love their wives is by planning for things like this. Don't make your wife do the planning, and don't make her wake up one day and go, my husband's just passed away and I don't have a clue about anything. Don't do that to your wife. Take the initiative, be a man, step up, call John Browning, reach out to him at guardianrockwealth.com and just start the process. You know, I'm a big fan of people need to be planning their funeral. You need to have a will. You need an estate plan, John. You got people that you work with who help with estate planning if that's needed, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Taxes. One of my favorite questions right now, John, to my friends is like, do you think taxes in the next decade, do you think they're going to stay the same, go down, or go up? And they answer that question. I'm like, okay, what are you doing to plan for that? Whatever their answer is, what are you going to do to plan for that? Because I'm convinced they're going to go up, which means that all my money in my 401k and all my money in Social Security, when I take it out, I'm going to get less of it because taxes are going to be higher. But there might be a way to plan for that. You would know. So think about things like that. And that's why you need to just have a conversation with John and go, what do you think, John? And he'll give you some thoughts and some questions to ask and some research. There's just so much going on in our culture, you know, right now with I think when Beaver's mom, that's what we're titling this, by the way, but why Beaver's mom would not make it in today's society. I don't think the government printed money and gave it to them in stimulus packages back then. Now, I'm grateful for what the government has done to step in to save some businesses and some people's lives. Payday's coming. Somebody's going to pay for that money. That's and I'm convinced, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving any financial advice. I'm convinced it's going to be us and our kids and our grandkids, right? How can we plan for that? What should I be doing now to plan for that if that's what I believe? If that's what you believe, you need to take a step and reach out to John and have that discussion to go, John, what do you think? How about this? Begin a relationship with somebody who's in your corner, who understands way more than you do probably about all of these things, because there are just so many factors. We just scratched the surface today on Social Security and when it started in 1935. We haven't touched on stock market and life insurance or pensions or, I mean, there are dozens and dozens of things. And I think that, John, that's why people don't do it.
It gets overwhelming. And so they just don't do it when they could just make a phone call to a comprehensive financial planner like what we do, and we'll help sort out the mess, because it is complicated. And, you know, it's so complicated that I don't specialize in everything. I have people who work with me that I know, like, and trust, and I worked with for many, many years, that take over at the point where my expertise hits the limit. Yeah.
And that's, by the way, brilliant. I tell people all the time, if you ever run across somebody who's an expert at everything, turn and run, because you just can't be. You can be an expert at one or two things, but you need a team around you, because, I mean, just think tax law. How often does the tax law change?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. You need somebody who just does that, let alone making sure your estate is set up properly and then funded properly. Right. We talked about titling a few episodes ago, about titling 401ks and Roths and all that the proper way. Well, how do you get that into your estate and your trust to make sure it flows properly? You can't be an expert at everything, John, but you are an expert at helping people build a life and not just a portfolio, and asking, you know, you're really an expert at just relationships. And you've got an expertise in finances, but it's the relationship component and the questions that you ask that help elicit what people really want. Because until they know that, it's just money. You got to know what you want and what's your what is the purpose of the money that you're accumulating? What's the what do you want? Answer those questions with John, and then he's going to be able to lay out a plan for you that's unique to you, because your plan is going to be different than my plan. I guarantee that. Right. But it's fun. It's good to have people like you. I always think of Rocky. You remember Rocky, the movie?
I loved Rocky. I've seen all the movies at least a dozen times.
Oh, I do too. And when we're talking, the picture that comes to mind is Rocky. It's probably the first or second one when he's in the ring, and it's probably around 13, right? And he's in the corner, and his trainer Mickey, there, right? And he cuts his eye, right? Rocky can't see, so he cuts his eyes with a razor blade so he can see again. And he's there just giving him that snarly look, but he's like, "Get back in there and go!" Right? And that's what you do. And you're Mickey. You're in the corner. You're encouraging me. You're giving me counsel and advice, and all of that. And that's what people need. They need a Mickey in their lives. They need somebody who's going to help them and guide them and direct them and show them. And that's what you do. That's why I love talking to you on these podcasts, because it just brings out the passions that I have around what you do. I can't do it, but you can, because you are an expert there, because you wrote an Amazon #1 best-selling book on it called Build a Life, Not Just a Portfolio. People can get a copy of that book, John, at your website, guardianrockwealth.com. They can get a report from you that you just released about the 8 common misperceptions of retirement, absolutely free. Go to the contact page and just reach out to John and say, "Hey, tag you're it. I'd like to have a conversation." Yeah. And I bet he will come and tag you back. And I guess that's a WWF thing, isn't it? Tag team. Sorry, I'm mixing my metaphors now.
A whole different thing, yeah. And I promise I will not cut your eye with a razor blade. It'll be much easier than that.
Less pain involved, definitely. So a lot of fun memories around Rocky. We could have a whole episode on that, but maybe not.
Maybe not.
Anyway, today we talked about all kinds of fun, nostalgic stuff. We started with Beaver, Cleaver's mom, and we ended with Rocky. So, how much more fun could a podcast get, John?
Not much more.
Not much more. And you're going to have a lot of fun when you reach out to John at guardianrockwealth.com. Just talk to him about your finances, your future, and what you really want in life, and see how he might be able to serve you and your family. It's a great time to do it now. So stop listening to the podcast because we're done. Go to guardianrockwealth.com and schedule a time with John Browning. John, thanks so much. It's been a fun walk down memory lane. Learn some things about Social Security, and learn about how you can help people navigate through that, as you can many, many things financial. So thanks for being here and sharing your great wealth with us.
All right. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.